The material contained in the Diverging Clear Podcast is for informational purposes only. The ideas and opinions expressed in the podcast does not represent the views or missions of National Rail Passenger Corporation or Amtrak or the Washington Metro Rail Safety Commission. This is the Diverging Clear Podcast.
Approach diverging, milepost 20.04. Diverging clear, milepost 20.06. Welcome to Diverging Clear, your transportation podcast, with your hosts William Moore and Jermaine Walker.
All right, welcome to the Diverging Clear Podcast on location. I'm out at Ogden Dunes, Indiana. I'm your host, William Moore. They said I'm out at Ogden Dunes, Indiana. I'm out here just getting some late night / early morning footage of freight trains on the NS Chicago line. I just want to kind of just do a little on the site perspective on what's going on. And just bring to the forefront some of the challenges that railroad workers face. Like I said, at this point in time, I'm checking the clock here. It's 4:18 in the morning. The distance back there, you can see a little bit. I hope you can see that. It's two red signals. Eastbound or westbound stack train just cleared, and there's an eastbound train lined up going in the opposite direction, heading east towards this destination. So what's the importance of me being out here at this location? I just kind of want to show you what railroad workers, the type of hours they work. Like I said, this is 4:19 in the morning, and there's a train lined up, which means that crew was probably called somewhere maybe about 1 a.m. in the morning. So when you discuss these different variables and these different things, when it relates to what railroad workers deal with, then, sorry about that. I'm just trying to just show you what type of hours they work. So the train that just went westbound, they're probably maybe in their 7th to 8th hour on duty, maybe if they're lucky, maybe even 9th to 10th hour. But the fact of the matter is at 4 in the morning, they still got another 2.5, 3 hours on duty. That means that they were probably called somewhere in the age range of, or in the range of somewhere probably 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and 4 in the morning, they're still out at work. And like I said, that's a Saturday day. It's a Saturday morning or Sunday morning, so they may have had a little bit more favorable traffic conditions where the traffic is a little bit lighter on a Saturday. So they may have they may be making it in Chicago at a decent time. But on your typical day, this line runs 100 plus trains, including Amtrak's. Amtrak Michigan service, plus the Lakeshore Limited, train 48 and 49, destined for New York and Boston, and also the Capital Limit, destined for Washington, D.C., and from D.C. to Chicago. They also traverse this line. So when you mix all that in with the type of the type of traffic that's moving on this route, it can make for a very, very long and challenging day. So just a couple things I want to point out as I'm looking and just saw a headlight coming around the corner. So there's another train coming. He must is gonna come to a stop, or he should be coming to a stop, because he's got red on the intermediates down there. But a couple things I just want to bring up, and I'll kind of take from my notes here a little bit. So, one of the things that I like to talk about is maybe the very people that are fighting for quality life insurance, which I was talking about, the BLET and the SMART and the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Employees. They're looking for quality of life changes. This is what their typical days are. Men and women, we're out here working, trying to deliver the goods for America at all hours of the day. This is a 24-hour operation. When the freighters needs to be moved, either scheduled or unscheduled, those crews answer the phones to get up and come out, and they with the knowingly that they'll be out all hours of the day. So one of the big things that I would just like I said, just want to bring to the forefront, that most people are asleep right now. But these men and women are out here moving these trains in a safe and efficient manner to make sure that we got what we need to survive. So that's one of the reasons why I just wanted to do this at this time, just to show you that this is all hours of the day that this takes place. So what the unions are still in contention, or even what the PEB suggested, is the quality of life issues, which comes down to informal sick time off. Because a lot of people don't realize, I kind of mentioned it in my last podcast, is that railroad workers do not have sick days. In particular, train and engine crews, T&E, the conductors and engineers, they don't have sick days. So they're asking they're asking in their negotiations for 15 sick days, which in this grueling environment and after coming out of the pandemic seems very reasonable. But the carriers don't see it that way. They make claims that they can take vacation time and single vacation days and different things to compensate for that, but it's not. If you wake up one day, you're not feeling well, or one of your kids or somebody or your partner is not feeling well, they aren't allowed to take a sick day. They still have to show up to work. So, some of those things that I'm discussing in regards to that is that people don't have sick time on the railroad. One of the most grueling, all hours of the day type environments to work in, and they have to show up every day. In the 21st century, especially coming out the pandemic, I don't think that's reasonable. And the PEB, instead of supporting that cause, they asked for the railroads to give one sick day. What is one sick day gonna do for guys? Nothing. So one of the sticking points in regards to that, and I'm not sure if this train is gonna, he's still kind of creeping up. He may make some noise here behind me. But one of the things that the carriers, their contention was that if the carriers allowed this to happen, he stopped, so he's got red signal, so he's not going to disturb the video. I'll show him when I'm done. But the carriers contended that in order to provide 15 sick days per employee for all of the rail workers, the T&E and those different crafts, engineers and conductors, their contention was that it would cost them about $630 million annually. I'll break it down even further than that. So $630 million annually, according to what the carriers is. So notice what I said, plural, carriers. So when you look at the carriers, you got the Union Pacific, the BNSF, Kansas City Southern, CP, Canadian Pacific, Canadian National, CSX, and NS. They're saying that it would cost all of them combined $630 million annually. So when you break that up upon each individual carrier and average that out, it comes to about additional $90 million in operating costs for the carriers. So you say $90 million per carrier, that's a lot of money. No, it's not. When you break it down, that's not a lot of money. Look at their recent earning reports, their quarterly earnings reports. These guys were having revenues in excess of over 1 billion dollars. $90 million to go to the employees or to add to the operating costs in order for these guys to have sick days. That's a small amount of money, and it shows. If we just show the humanity that you want to show towards these workers. $90 million per carrier, that's nothing. But I guarantee you they shell out more than that to their investors or their shareholders. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to make this point, because I went back through, read some of the recommendations, but one of the things that I was really focused on was the paid time off. And I wanted to focus on that. So a couple trains are about to go by. I hear one and I hear the horn. I don't know if you can hear it over my voice, but he's coming. We're going to take a quick break. I'm going to take a shot with him and then I'll finish up my conversation. But remember that $90 million per carrier. When you look at their financial statements and their earnings reports, see how much of an impact that would really have on their earnings. We'll talk back here in a second.
Diverging Clear is sponsored by EME Rail Solutions, LLC. We don't own rail cars, locomotives, or tracks, but if you do, we provide cutting-edge solutions to maximize your assets. Visit us at emerail.net to learn more. Diverging Clear is also brought to you by Three Kings Freight Brokerage, LLC. Visit threekingsfreightbrokerage.llc.com to learn more about their services.
All right, welcome back to the Diverging Clear Podcast. I'm your host, William Moore. Don't forget to click like and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Google Play, Apple, wherever you subscribe to your favorite podcast at. Don't forget to subscribe and like and share. As you can see, there's an empty oil can, what we call empty oil cans, an empty crude oil train rolling back west for more loads. As we continue this conversation, it is currently 4:40 a.m. I'm out at Ogden Dunes on location on the NS Chicago line. That's a westbound oil can train rolling towards Chicago. And so we'll pick up on the conversation where I left off at, which is where I left off was talking about the $90 million per year annually. It would cost on average, it would cost the major carriers to allow for their employees to have 15 sick days per year. Now in this industry, as we talked about, all the carriers always tout their earning reports. They always tout their overall operating budgets and how they've reduced the amount of operating cost and return that cost reduction, return it to their shareholders. But the railroad employees are asking for a bit of that back, and the railroad carriers don't want to allow it. They're fighting hard. The PEB recommended, as opposed to the 15 days, they recommended 1 sick day and an additional national holiday, either Martin Luther King birthday or Juneteenth, as one in reserve, which I kind of don't like how they do that. Everybody else's national holidays are not optional, but they do always make sure to make that the holidays honoring African Americans say in particular Martin Luther King birthday and Juneteenth, they always like to make those optional for railroad employees. Every other holiday we have to sub, but that's a whole different episode. We'll get into that later. But just the point that I wanted to wrap up here was just in specific about that cost. And that's not a huge cost in the grand scheme of things. If you want to attract employees, which railroads are claiming they're having, or they know they're having a hard time getting people to either come in the industry or stay in the industry, these are different things you got to offer. So just to wrap up my point here, on site, on location at Ogden Dunes, I just want to, point out a couple things. Railroad T&E employees are called at all hours of the day and night, to be more precise. They give much more back to the industry than the industry wants to give back to them. They do this every day in the most efficient manner possible and safe manner possible. They oftentimes do this with little to no rest. They often do times this with distractions at home, which everybody has. And they do this, and they do it, like I said, it's almost a thankless job, especially after this pandemic. A lot of this stuff, the way that the railroad employees show resiliency, even amongst as ranks were shrinking due to furloughs and attrition or whatever you want to call it, the ranks were shrinking, and these guys and these men and women of the rail industry continue to move. So now when it comes to the contract, the rail carriers still don't want to allow for them to have sick days and a different quality of life. It just doesn't make sense. It's the 21st century. We should not have to still be having this argument at all. We're talking about $90 million for an entire year when they're bringing home revenues in excess of $1.3 or $1.4, $1.5 billion per quarter. And they're going to claim that that's not cost effective enough for them to be able to provide. That's garbage. Here it is. You'll see it in different clips from the different things I took tonight. 3, 4 in the morning, different times a day. Railroad crews are out here. And when I'm seeing them here, either they just started on duty or they just can't, or they're getting towards the end of their hours. They're getting towards their home terminal. So one thing I would like to emphasize is that this railroad life is not easy. I've been in it for 18 years, 2004, March 29, 2004, that's my seniority date. I started as a brakeman on the EJ&E. People might ask, well, why you so strong for what the railroad employees are going through or what they're asking for? Because it's fair. It's a fair ask that the unions are asking for their employees. And the reason I've worked and I've been in the trenches with these other railroad employees. I've done it. Like I said, I started as a brakeman on the EJ&E. I'll get to another one of those stories about a brakeman on the EJ&E, but I've worked all kind of hours of the day. I worked as a dispatcher, chief train dispatcher for the EJ&E also. When we were acquired by the Canadian National, it was same thing as a train dispatcher, but they called it a rail traffic controller. Same responsibility, same functions. There was a time where I was threatened with my job because at the time my wife was at a high-risk pregnancy and she was in a hospital. She was having some complications. And when I went to my bosses to explain I needed to take a couple days off, they told me if I wanted to stay gainfully employed, I needed to show up. And if I didn't, I would be terminated. At that time, we didn't have a rail union on our property. We had something of an association, but it wasn't a rail union that could have fought it. And the whole problem behind it was because of how difficult our territory was. There was not enough qualified dispatchers on our territory. So essentially we were short-staffed on that desk. And if I didn't show up, there was not going to be anybody to work the desk. So that sounded like a railroad issue, not a my issue. But they made it a my issue. There was also times during that time, because we were so short-staffed with qualified dispatchers, that I was working 3 shifts, 6 days a week. So Monday, Tuesday, I would work 7 to 3. Wednesday, Thursday, I would work 3 to 11. Friday, Saturday, I would work 11 to 7. So the end of my work week ended with me getting off of work at 7 in the morning on Sunday, because those are the hours that were required. Getting off work at 7 a.m. on Sunday, I had to be back at work on Monday morning at 7 a.m. I did that for several months because we didn't have enough people qualified to work the desk. I've also worked numerous hours of overtime as a yard master. Forced overtime. Because again, staffing issues. And let me remind you, no sick time. So even if I worked 3-4 doubles in a week, if I was exhausted and sick, or just to the point where I just needed to rest, I couldn't do it. I had to show up to work where I didn't get paid. Even after working all those hours, we killed the overtime. No, overtime wasn't worth it because Uncle Sam took a big chunk of that too. After a certain number of hours. So why am I so pro-union in this manner? Because stuff needs to change. It needs to change. We need more employees in this union. We need more employees in these ranks. But how are we going to get those employees if we're not offering people fair contracts to do this dangerous and grueling work? That's the only thing I want to say. That's the only point I want to make here. This is not an easy industry to work in. Nothing dealing with logistics, transportation, none of it is easy. But we got to adapt what we're offering the employees to make them want to work in this industry. And we got to make it fair. We got to make it fair. So Congress, if y'all see this, if y'all decide to take up this matter, look out for the men and women that move these trains and keep our economy moving. Look out for them. They've been looking out for everybody else. It's time somebody turn around and look out for them when it comes to this contract. That's my rant. That's my on-site location from Ogden Dunes, Indiana. The NS Chicago line in my background. And also over here, you can see it behind those light poles. That's the South Shore Railroad, NICD. I'm at their station parking lot shooting. This is about one of the safest locations to do it. But look out for these employees. That's what this whole episode is about. Look out for them. Thanks for tuning in. I'm getting ready to wrap up because it's been a long night for me, but not longer than those guys that was moving the trains. But I'm going to wrap it up for now. For this segment of the Diverging Clear Podcast on location at Ogden Dunes. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll wrap up this episode on the other side. Thank you.
Diverging Clear is sponsored by EME Rail Solutions, LLC. We don't own rail cars, locomotives, or tracks, but if you do, we provide cutting-edge solutions to maximize your assets. Visit us at emerail.net to learn more. Diverging Clear is also brought to you by Three Kings Freight Brokerage, LLC. Visit Three Kings Freight Brokerage, LLC.com to learn more about their services.
The Diverging Clear podcast is also brought to you in part by Precision Logistics, LLC. Precision Logistics, LLC, meeting tomorrow's logistical needs today. Visit www.precisionlogisticsllc.info to learn how.